Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dan Nguyen with the Intentional Entrepreneur Podcast. I have a very, very special guest with me today. He is the founder and CEO of Podcasting You, which is a podcast booking agency that he launched out of his dorm room in 2017. And what he does is help generate more exposure and leads through podcast interview marketing. So today I want to welcome my new friend, Trevor Oldham.
Thank you, Dan. Excited to be here and excited to speak to your audience today.
Yeah. So thank you so much for reaching out. I'm glad, my podcast is having a little bit of effect in the community. But yeah, thanks again for reaching out. And when you shared with me a little bit about what you do, I thought it would be a perfect fit or very intriguing for my listeners, because they're all business owners, they're all entrepreneurs. They're always looking for more clients or your customers. And podcasting, although it's been around for a long time, there's kind of this new strategy that you're behind, and getting people booked onto podcasts. But today we're going to talk a little bit more about how you grew this particular business, Podcast You, out of your dorm room into a six-figure business with remote workers. Before we kind of get down to the nitty-gritty, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and how you became an entrepreneur.
Sure. So I grew up in Massachusetts. I moved briefly to Ohio, where my dad's job took me, but I was super young, so I was like on 3 or 4, so I don't remember any of that pretty much. But moved back to Massachusetts primarily from the Cape Cod area, so down by the ocean, have the beaches down there. So grew up in Massachusetts, went through nice normal public high school, went to state colleges. I actually transferred halfway through, and I was majoring in finance and decided to major in management information systems with a concentration in e-commerce and digital business, because at that time I was way more interested in building an online business than I was with a finance degree. And I kind of was pursuing finance after watching The Wolf of Wall Street, and I realized that it's not as glamorous as the movie makes it out to be. So it's just typical growing up and everything, just going along the way. But I realized I was about a senior in high school, and I realized that I was working at a job making $7.03 an hour, local retail sporting goods store. And I just didn't want to do it forever. I hated the job. I think I only lasted 3 months at that particular job, but I knew I wanted to do something else with my life. But I was also, again, senior in high school. I couldn't just go out there and get a good paying job. So I went on Amazon and I just searched on how to buy books and start a business. I started to read this one book, and they really outlined the differences between the lower, middle, and upper class. And one of those differences was the upper class had started a business. And I thought back to myself, well, I've done door-to-door lemonade selling, bought and sold baseball cards, mowed people's lawns, like anything I could do to make money. Never knew that it was called entrepreneurship. So that was my first thought into, wow, I could start a business. Like I can make money on my own terms. And then from there, it was a series of journeys. I bought phone cases from Alibaba and AliExpress. And for those of you who are listening who may not know, they allow you to import products directly from China. Imported 50 phone cases for about $80. So those at $10 a piece. But I learned this was in the early days of Alibaba and AliExpress, where they were selling name brand products and they were knockoffs, which I don't know why I didn't think of that. So all the phone cases I sold on eBay got returned to me. But I knew the products were super cheap. I started importing bracelets and watches, would buy these bracelets for $1, these watches for $2, sell them online using a Shopify website for about $18, $20. And was just, building a small little brand like that. That company never made a ton of money, maybe like $300 a month was my revenue. But again, just trying to start different businesses. Eventually I started a company that it was a motivational based company, grew super quickly. We had 600,000 followers in the first year. I had started a podcast with it, but with that company, I learned that people love motivational content. You can picture like any motivational page on Instagram. People are going to like, share, and comment on it all day long. But when it comes to actually buying a morning routine course, buying a course on how to start a podcast, they weren't there. So after about 2 years, I decided to take a step on the sidelines, use some of the skills that I had learned through that business, and started freelancing. Just started picking up gigs, used a site called Upwork, started editing people's podcasts, writing blog posts for people. And one day I came across a real estate investor out of Los Angeles, and she put a job posting saying, hey, I want to get booked on podcasts to share my story. I thought to myself, well, I book guests in my own podcast. How hard could it be to get her booked on shows? Started working with her, made some some mistakes early on, like pitching a real estate investor to all these real estate agent shows, which they were not too happy about. And,
Mm.
I'm just making some mistakes, but just kept going back to the well of Upwork every day, searching for people that want to get booked on podcasts and working with people in fitness, working with politicians,
Mm.
people in the political space, just finding as many jobs as I could on there. And after about 6 months or so, I realized that this could potentially be a real business. And at this time I was still a junior in college. So I hadn't gone through college. I was still going through college. And after about a year, and I realized it paid better than blog posts, paid more than podcast editing, was a little bit easier to do. But I realized
Mhm.
if I wanted to scale the company, I would have to build a team as I was still in college, and I couldn't afford to hire someone like locally. Like I couldn't afford to hire and pay someone $70,000 locally to help the business. So that's why I turned to the remote work first, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit. But and that's really how the company started, and just built a team and expanded it over the last 4 years or so.
Okay, cool. So I think, especially with if you're listening to the show today, we're kind of in the middle of coronavirus, and a lot of people have gone purely remote. Digital nomads have been doing that for years, but it's forced a lot of workers and business owners who maybe they used to go into an office, force them to work remotely and work from home. And so now these uh, having remote workers, managing them is kind of like a whole new ball game, right? It's not the
Hmm.
same as I can go down the hall and hey Jerry, this is like this issue with this. Can you to take care of it? There's a whole new um, uh, ball game as far as managing remote workers. Now, do you hire like employees, or do you employ freelancers?
So I employ freelancers, but more I look to hire them. So I start them off always as part time, and then if they're
Mhm,
good, I bring them on to full time. So they start off
mhm,
as sort of freelancers, and then I bring them on. But I bring them on as 1099 contractors, so I don't
mhm.
have to offer them like health benefits, 401k.
Yeah.
Maybe that's in the future, but for right now, for my business model, it makes it easier just having them as 1099 contractors. And
Mm.
the typical person I hire is a stay at home mom, and which
Mm.
is perfect because generally the husband is probably going to be working and he's probably going to have the health insurance. So it kind of just works out for my business model.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like most of your hires are maybe North America or even in United
Mhm.
States primarily.
Correct. I primarily,
Okay.
so the majority of our team, like the people that are in it day to day, I have
Mhm,
in the US because they sometimes they do. It's more of a client facing role. So sometimes they might
mhm,
have to hop on a call with our
mhm,
clients, and we want to make sure that the cultures are going to be the same. But
mhm.
sometimes if it's like a one off project, like if I need web design, no, I don't typically care who I hire from whatever country, as long as they're going to do a good job for it.
Yeah. So for podcasting, I know at the beginning we kind of do everything, right? Um, did you have a struggle like delegating? Did you have that type of personality? It's like, hey, I got to do
Mhm.
everything, and then maybe what was that switch, or like, hey, if I want to scale this business, I need to be able to let go and then hire the right people.
I think it was for me. I definitely had that mindset where I wanted to do everything on my own. That was always me. Like I'm the best at it. No one's going to be able to do it as good as me. But I realized that one of my time was crunched from just being in college, and I didn't have the unlimited time. And I also realized I didn't want to be pitching clients forever to be on podcasts. I knew it was a profitable company, but it wasn't something that I knew I wanted to do forever because it does take a lot of time, and it's tedious, and I don't enjoy that part as much. So it's
Mhm,
nice having workers who do it for our company. But I just looked at it and was just wanted to go out there and just I think I started small with my first hire. I think I brought her on for 10 to 15 hours per week and just started delegating some of the tasks. So when I would take on a new client, I would
mhm,
assign them to her and then just see how they would do. Then when she got good, hire a second or give her a second client and sort of go from there. But it was it was a work in progress. It definitely wasn't easy in the beginning. I
mhm,
made a ton of mistakes from trying to hire cheap, trying to
mhm.
not hire, no, not taking enough time to interview people, having people that just didn't weren't doing a good job, but I felt bad about their situation and keeping them on. Then all of a sudden I have a client emailing me saying, "Hey, what's going on?" All those sort of things that come into building a remote team, but it can definitely be done.
Sure. Now, do you hire through an agency or like Upwork, or do you find like true freelancers that they bill you directly?
So I hired directly through Upwork. I've
Okay.
tried to do like an Indeed and
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn, but I found the problem I ran into with those individuals is they were looking for one full time right off the bat. They're looking for more of a salary role, and I pay hourly because I find that to be better because I want my team producing results, and I don't want to just pay them a salary if they're not doing the jobs. And so that just happened to work out best for my company, is just doing more of a just finding the freelancers, and then once they're
Mhm.
good, just sort of bringing them onto my team and not
Yeah.
letting them do too many
Yeah.
other projects.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your hiring process. How do you come up with the tasks, and then what how do you post up the job description?
So what I'll do is I'll go through and just list out, like, sort of on like a Word doc, I'll list out everything that I want to get accomplished in the
Mhm.
job. And then so that's everything that they need to do. So pitching
Mhm.
clients, answering emails, following up on emails, things
Mhm.
like that. And then
Mhm.
so I always put the job description, and then I'll put like a job success. A success looks like getting our
Mhm.
clients booked on 30% of the shows that you pitch, following up in an orderly manner. You're going to be, working during these hours. This is what's expected of you, and sort of
Mhm.
having that. And then I'll post it. And then I'll probably generally like wait about 2 days, make sure that people start applying to it. And then at that point, I'll just look over the applications. And what I do is, because my team is built up now, is
Mhm.
I'll send our team and be like, hey guys, these are the people that applied to be on our team. Who do you think works the best? And then
Mhm.
I'll get their feedback. Once I get their feedback, then I'll hop on a call with the person. I'll have a brief call, just more or less try to learn more about them. At that point, I'll bring them onto a team meeting, have them like sort of like the team interview them, get to know them, and
Mhm.
then I'll have a call with my team, make sure that they sound good. At that point, it's still sort of not case and close. So I have like a 90-day trial period where
Mhm.
I'll start them off very small, give them just one client to manage. If they can do a good job with that one client, I'll give them two clients. If they can do a good
Mhm.
job too, then three, and then I'll give them more hours. I'll increase their pay as they do a better job. So that's really how I do it now. In the
Mhm.
past, I think I would just interview the people myself and just try to use my gut. It didn't work
Mhm.
out. There is instances where I'd hire people on a Monday, assign them to clients. Then on a Friday, they'd be like, hey, this job isn't really cut out for me. So if I could go back, and if I was starting that hiring process over again, it would really just taking the time to ask great questions when you're interviewing someone. Make sure that you list out everything that needs to be done, what the expectations are, and
Mhm.
then sort of doing that trial period where you're not bringing them on a full 20, 40 hours, whatever it might be, just starting them small to ensure that they're a good fix. You don't want to, it's a bit of a pain when they don't do a good job and you got to fire them after training them.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm growing my team as well, and one of the issues I've had before is like I've used freelancers, and they just kind of like they disappeared, right?
Yep.
And so it's like, oh, I mean, luckily it wasn't like mission critical, but you're exactly right. You spend all this time interviewing, training them, and then like that all went out the window. And so obviously, you mentioned mistakes, right? We all kind of learn.
Hmm.
I think I learned, unfortunately, things better the hard way. But I've documented a lot of my system processes, so training isn't as laborious as you see. Now I want to go back. You mentioned bringing on your team and essentially getting them involved. I think the another good thing, it goes to kind of company culture and valuing
Hmm.
your team members. Can you talk a little bit about what your company culture is, and how much feedback or input do you get from your team members on other things outside of bringing on a new team member?
Yeah, I like to give my team sort of the full reins where they can go out, they can test things, they can try different things. Basically, what I tell them is, I don't care what you do, as long as you get the job done. You can tweak the pitches, you can try out different things, you can do pretty much whatever you want. Just make sure that the clients that you're assigned to are getting booked on shows in a timely manner, and that's perfectly fine with me. And I let them know that, like, you can work when you want. Just make sure that the job is. I'm not gonna hold you to be 9 to 5. The expectations are that I want you to be somewhat responsive during the
Mhm.
week, as that's when our clients are going to be most talkative. That's when they're going to be online. But I like to have that sort of that open culture. Again,
Mhm.
if I do notice problems, then I got to talk to them and sort of lay it down early on before it gets too much of a problem. But I do like to have that open where they feel free. They don't feel like they're confined. And I think that plays into the company culture. And I like to let them always know that I have their backs as well. Because there's been instances, it's rare, but it does happen occasionally, where we have a client and for whatever reason they're not being nice. They're not treating our employees right. And at that point, I want to make sure that I stick up for my employees. So in these cases, I'll refund the client their full amount on what they've paid us, so that we can so we don't have to work with them anymore. And I try to do that. So I try to just stick up for my employees, and again, have it be open as possible so that they know that it's okay. They can try things out. If it doesn't work, that's perfectly fine. Because probably 9 times out of 10 they have better ideas than I have, which is which is always nice. So I never want to cap them and be like, this is the only way that we're going to work. I want them to know that it is possible and it is open for more ways than one.
Yeah. So, you previously mentioned, most of your workers or freelancers are, stay-at-home moms. And I remember scrolling through Facebook a while back, and this guy was running ads like $3 overseas virtual assistants to help you gain leads. And, in my experience, paying someone really low isn't that great because the quality of work. But tell me a little bit why, with obviously with the global economy, and especially like in the Philippines, there's lots of competent VAs and freelancers. Why you kind of focused on like I know you mentioned stay home, but in terms of pricing, right? Did you try overseas and it didn't work out to you, or like you were getting like the best results with, stay-at-home moms?
So I was running into issues when I was hiring people overseas. They just I guess in a sense just weren't grasping what I was trying to achieve, or they would disappear for 2 weeks. And at some point I was like, I just want to hire in the US, but I want to say I only, like, right now I have a VA. She is from the Philippines. I pay her $5 an hour, and I give her one specific task, which is do cold email marketing for our business, where she goes and finds people on podcasts and reaches out to them and says, hey, I listened to you on this podcast. Our company can help you get booked on more podcasts.
Did she cold email me? Or was that you?
I think that was me.
Okay.
Yep. So she'll just do like the one task, and she does great at that. So she does the marketing. But when it came to pitching clients on a regular, and because I think I give her a standard sort of pitch and she can tweak it a little bit. But when it came to tweaking all the pitches that we sent out, there would be a little bit of a language barrier, and I can't have like grammar issues or punctuation issues when we're sending out pitches and trying to be professional. So that's some of the issues I ran into there as well. I mean, I wish that I could hire employees, all my team, for $3 an hour. I mean, I would cut overhead by about 80 to 90%, but unfortunately it just wasn't working out. And I know we've all read like the 4-Hour Work Week, and we have those sort of dreams. But for me personally, I just felt better hiring US employees. I got along with them better. The culture seemed to be a little bit better of a fit for myself and for the company.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. So, you grow your company, adding, more and more freelancers. Are you all, do you have like any technical employees, or is it all freelancers?
So all freelancers, any like technical thing that I need, I'll just throw a post up there on Upwork. Like we redesigned our website. So I paid someone a couple $100s to redesign the website. If I need someone to write blog posts, I'll outsource it so that they can do that. Same with email marketing. So I just pretty much outsource everything and to on these different specific tasks that are out there.
Yeah. So you mentioned the 4-Hour Work Week. Was that kind of the inspiration behind, or did that kind of start the process of like, hey, I can build this company, not necessarily with like, W-2 employees, but there's a plethora of freelancers out there that I can use and grow my business?
I think it was a mixture of the 4-Hour Work Week and then also the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And between those two books, were, for me, like, I want to work more than 4 hours per week. Like I enjoy working. So that never was for me. It was to get it down to like where I'm not working. But I also knew that if I wanted to go out and take a vacation, I needed to make sure that client calls were still happening, clients were still being pitched. So sort of a mixture of both. And I probably rely on a little bit more on the E-Myth to know that I have the systems and processes put in place, so I don't have to be working on my business all the time. It's more my team members that are handling all the big legwork.
Yeah. And for all the listeners right now, if you haven't read the E-Myth, that is, one of the foundations I think any entrepreneur should read, and get them really out of being the pie maker, so to speak, and to being the person that runs the shop and runs the business. One of the really things that opened my eyes in reading that book was, and it was kind of sobering too, is just because you're good at pies doesn't mean you should open up a pie shop. And so I think it allows the reader to get some self-perception, self-perspective, right? Like, do I enjoy the work? Am I good at the work? Would I enjoy managing people? Would I enjoy doing all the administrative stuff, at least at the beginning, right? To to get so now uh, now can you share? You get now you have a huge team. Like, what do you do? Uh, and then as you're involved in the business, and obviously you said like uh, specific client stuff you've handed off, but how are you involved in your business today?
So my main things I do are basically three things. One, I take sales calls. Right now,
Mhm,
I've thought about hiring an outside salesperson, but for right now, I enjoy doing the sales calls.
mhm,
I don't feel like overwhelmed with them. I enjoy talking to them, so I keep the sales
mhm,
calls. I do podcast interviews like we're doing today, and then I
mhm,
also help out with the marketing. So I'll try different marketing strategies. Like I'll be like looking into Google AdWords, which I'm doing right now. And on Friday,
mhm,
I have a LinkedIn marketing call with an individual. So my main goal is just figure out ways to get more clients for the company, and then when I have them on a call, to close those clients. So it's almost like a more of a sales role within the company. And then my
mhm,
team, I have a team that sets everything. They'll set my client relations manager, Amanda.
mhm,
She sets everything up for the team, and then she hands it off to what we call our booking agents, who at that point will pitch our client. So it's pretty much I get the clients for the company, and then I hand them off to the team, and then they do all the rest of the legwork.
perfect, perfect. So how do you know when to add a team member to your organization?
I find that if there's a big influx of clients, and I like to be transparent with my team. So, like, if I notice that all of a sudden we've taken on 5 clients in a new week, I'll reach out to my team and I'll be like, "Hey, I know you're working, 30 hours a week. Can you take on more, or do you think I should go out and hire an additional, team member?" And I like to get their feedback because, like, I don't
Mhm,
want to overwhelm them. I don't want to give them too many people. So I like to first have the open and honest conversation with them to
mhm,
understand that our team's maxed out. And then at that
mhm,
point, I'll go out and try to hire someone new. But again, I like to get my feedback from my team, because sometimes I'll think that my employee is maxed out and they'll be like, yeah, no, I could fit an extra 10 hours in my schedule. So I'm like, okay, they can probably manage another 2 or 3 more clients before I have to go out there and take on a new team member. So it's really just listening to my team and getting their feedback to know that, all right, yeah, they're maxed out. I don't want to give them any more. Let me go get someone else.
yeah. So I read I think it was a story. Yeah, it was a story. Well, I think it was on Facebook, and someone asked like, "Oh, is any where can I find a good babysitter, good and reliable babysitter?" And I think someone told me one time is like, no one's going to share that information because right, they're not going to want to share it. So how do you like how do you keep your employees, right? How do you keep them happy? How do you keep them engaged in your business?
I find one, paying them well. So I not I want to say every month, but probably about every 3 months, I like to give my employees a raise. About
Mhm,
$2. I don't like to do a dollar. I like to do about $2. So that
mhm,
way, my employees working 30 hours a week. So 2 times 30, so 60. Probably an
mhm,
extra 240. 300 a month
mhm,
extra. I like to reward them in that sense. I like to occasionally send them gift cards. Like, if they do an excellent job, send them a $100 gift card to Target, $100 gift card to Amazon, and let them know that I appreciate them. Always try to be positive with them, and create that positive community. And I find that that's the way that I'm able to keep them, is more or less just treating them like good employees. Like, without them, my company wouldn't be able to run, you
mhm.
know, it wouldn't be possible. So, and I know that, and I want them to understand that they are what makes the company run. Without them, it wouldn't be possible. So I think it's just treating them kind, treating them fair, and I think it's just a combination of that just allows me to keep them, and they don't go running off.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like it's so hard, there's always shiny there's perhaps greener pastures, especially, in straight terms of pay, right?
Mhm.
There's always possibilities of getting to pay more. But I think you made a good point is like, what is the company culture? Do they like the working there? I remember I was talking to one person. Um, they weren't getting paid the highest, but they weren't getting paid the lowest, but she really liked the company. She really liked the boss she was working. So she was willing to take kind of less pay
Mm.
for an enjoyable work environment. Okay. So let's kind of get to the harder stuff. How do you let go of your workers?
So that's that's a difficult conversation. I haven't
Mhm,
had that one in quite a while, but typically what happens is there's something that's been going on.
mhm,
So the last one I had to let go, she had been working with us, I want to say three or 4 months, doing a good job, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, 2 weeks go by, like we haven't heard from her. In 2 weeks in our business, if I haven't heard from you, that means 2 weeks of clients not getting pitched, 2 weeks of clients not hearing from our business,
Mhm.
and that's not a good thing. So first I reach out, I don't hear anything back. At that point, I'll have to go into their email. I'll have to, see if they're answering any emails. At that point, if I go into their email and all of a sudden I see they have 50 like unread emails from podcast hosts, from clients, at that point there's really only thing I can do, and it's just to let them go, have a conversation with them, say, I appreciate your time with us. Unfortunately, it's just not working out. And at that point, honestly, they're fine with it, because they kind of expect it when they haven't been doing work for 2 weeks. And in the past, I'd been a little bit more lenient, where I had an employee who had disappeared for 2 weeks. They came back and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll be fine. I'll continue work good for about 4 weeks." Again, they disappeared, and I was like, "Well, I run a business. I don't run a charity, so I need to make sure that you're going to be, working for us." And it's a hard situation, but at the end of the day, it's my company, it's your company. If they're not producing the results, I don't want clients breathing down my neck. It's the last thing I want. It doesn't because I've had that before, and it doesn't make me sleep well at night. I don't want to be stressed for running a business. The reason I run a business is to not be stressed.
Yeah.
Um, so when
Yeah.
so when that happens, I just have to have that conversation. It's tough, but you kind of just want to rip the band-aid off, let them
Mhm.
go, and know that there's millions of people that you could go out there and
Mhm.
hire, and that would do, just as good or even better job than what that person was doing.
Right, right. All right. So let's talk. Tech stack. Right. What are some of the tools you use to communicate with your clients and your team? Is it G Suite? Is it Slack? Where do you host your? Do you have a SOP, standard operating procedure? Where do you put that? Can you share a little bit about what tools you're using?
Well, certainly. So definitely use G Suite, to communicate. We also use BaseCamp. We're big on BaseCamp.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the number one way that we communicate. We had Slack. We decided to go to BaseCamp, just as like not to have too many softwares going out there. So we use BaseCamp. BaseCamp is nice because we can set up our clients on there. So when we book an interview for our client, we can give them all the details, when the interview is, the Zoom
Mm-hmm.
link, more information, and the client will get a reminder as long as they downloaded BaseCamp. Or I believe they also get emails. So we use Basecamp to communicate. And then we also use Toggle. So I'm big on time tracking. I have all my
Okay.
employees time track and give it to relevant clients. So I also have them use that, which is nice, especially in my business, where I want to know if they're pitching one client and they've taken up 10 hours in the week and they've only gotten one show booked, and another client they do 10 hours and they get 10 shows booked. Well, obviously there's a little bit of a discrepancy there that I want to figure out. So having them time track and put it towards a certain client, that helps. But more than, biggest thing we use is Basecamp. We've tried a couple different ones. I've tried I believe ClickUp was one. I've tried Asana. I've tried those different ones, but I found that for whatever reason, Basecamp was the one we just kept coming back to and sticking to work with.
Yeah, I know Basecamp's been around for a very long time, and
Mhm.
the owner had a blog, very popular blog. I did try Basecamp over 10 years ago, but in my industry, they came out with very industry specific
Mm.
software, so I had to move away from Basecamp. But if those softwares, I probably would have stick to Basecamp, because it was so I found it very easy to use. Okay. And you talk a little bit about tech stack too. Do you guys have a phone system, or is it all cell phones? Tell us a little bit about what you guys use there.
Yeah, so just primarily all over the internet, just
Mhm.
all over email. I've done it in the past where I've wanted to make my company look bigger, so I buy
Mhm.
a phone number that, like a 1-800 number
Mhm.
that redirects to my cell phone. You can get them for I think $3 to $10 a month. They're relatively cheap, but I find that the majority of clients don't want to call me more
Yeah,
often than not. And then plus I
yeah,
don't want to answer the call. Like I want to be like sort of like mentally ready when I'm going to be
yeah,
talking to them, making sure
yeah.
I have it all set up. So I just
Mhm.
use Calendly. So I'll send them a link
Mhm.
to my Calendly. They'll go on there. They'll book a time on my calendar. I think I don't let them book. I think there's 24-hour time frame. So like if it's today Wednesday, they couldn't book tomorrow. They'd have to book on Friday. So I have to make sure I have time to prepare. And then
Yeah.
they'll use Calendly. I have email reminders, text reminders, and then also the Zoom link. So they have all the information there, and I'm able to
Yeah.
communicate with them through that.
Yeah, Calendly is fantastic. I use Acuity, which is essentially
Mhm.
the same thing. So obviously save a lot of time and
Oh yeah,
and
I
and
couldn't
and
imagine
back.
not having one.
Yeah, what I have, I don't know if you have this problem, but what I haven't found is a solution for a three-party or a multiple party, uh, a good one. There's other ones out there, but like what I have to do is like all right, I have to select 10 times that I'm available. Then it goes to the next, other people, then, they select their 10 times, and all it does is just match,
Mhm.
with overlaps. But I haven't found like a
Yeah,
Calendly solution.
I have not found like that before.
Yeah, maybe there's a market for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. So, we've talked about growing your team, scaling your team with remote workers and your tech stack. I want to dive a little bit more about what you do for your clients at Podcasting You.
So what we
Okay.
do is sort of podcast interview marketing. So you can think of us as a PR company. So instead of you going out there and getting
Mhm,
featured on your local television station, you
mhm,
getting featured on a blog, we get people featured on podcasts as a form of marketing. So I'm sure like us talking today, people are listening to our conversation. So we put our clients on podcasts that hit their target audience so that they can go and share their story with the goal on the back end of being able to build more exposure for their brand, but also to
mhm.
generate more leads, more clients, more customers for their business.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I love that you do it where, their target audience is listening, because, that's, it doesn't make sense, right,
Hmm.
to put them on a podcast that, their ideal client is not listening. But let's talk about the back. Do you do support on the back end? Or sorry. All right. So now that you got, we booked you on the show, what does a person who, a podcast guest have to do on the back end, right? Either follow up or, keep that engagement going.
So typically what you would want to do is like, let's say you're going onto the podcast, you want to make
Mhm,
sure that you have an email funnel set
mhm,
up. So you want to make sure like if you go to like my website, podcastingyou.com/book, I have a free ebook. You sign up for it.
mhm,
Now I use ConvertKit. So now you're into my email funnel. I give you the free ebook. I tell you
mhm,
some nice things about the podcasting industry, tell you about the benefits of being a podcast guest. Now
mhm,
you're into like day 5 and 6 of my email funnel. Now I tell you you should schedule a call with our company. So you want to make sure that you have that funnel set up so that when you're doing these interviews, you're being able to take advantage of it. Because if you're just sending people to the homepage of your website, it's probably not going to be as effective. And I like to give like if I'm listening to a podcast, I'm not likely to go to the person's site and buy what they have right then and there. I'm more likely to, hey, let me just sign up for their email newsletter so that I can get updates from their company. Now I've heard from them, over a course of a couple of days, a couple of months. Now I'm ready to go and sign up with them. And that's happened before. We've had clients where I talked to, even this past week, I talked to a client in July and August, and I put them on my email list. And now they emailed me this past week, and we're like, oh, we're ready to get started now. So it's that point of retention where people may not be ready right away to buy from your product or service. So it's keeping
mhm.
them in contact with that email funnel.
Yeah. Yeah. I think email funnel is totally, um, almost required these days,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have, we're all busy. You're not going to have time to do these one-on-one emails, and email automation has make our lives a lot easier. But money's in the follow-up, right? And I think my longest one was, um, I followed up with the potential for 2 years
Oh, wow.
before. Yeah, yeah. And it was worth it. So, but yeah, money's in the follow up.
Hmm.
Okay. So, all right, we've talked about, growing your team, what you do over a podcast. You were kind of getting near the end here, so I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions about, you and your business. All right.
Perfect.
Okay. So, what's the best business book you've ever read?
It's going to be The Wealthy Gardener by John Safork. For those of you who haven't read it, highly recommend it. Basically, it's a chiropractor making, I want to say 100K per year, but he wanted to build up a passive income stream for himself through rental properties, through real estate. And he details his journey over 20 years on how he grew his passive income to, I want to say it's about 200,000 per year now. But again, it took over 20 years. He wrote it to his college student son for when he graduated college. It's one of the best books. I think not that many people know about it, but it's just I like it because you read these books from some of these more known entrepreneurs and they make it seem a little bit easier. And I found that John, he's not known. He has no following. He's just an average everyday guy who wanted to make a good amount of money for himself and his family. And he writes about it. And I just really like that aspect of it.
All right, I'll put that on my list. Um, who do you look up to?
I would say I would say Steve Jobs. I know he's passed away, but for quite a while now. But here's the first business book I read was Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. And just to realize that how he was able to change the world and think differently, that's always inspired me. So when I want to think differently in my business and do things that are outside the norm, I think of Steve Jobs and what he was able to accomplish.
All right. What's the best business advice you've ever received?
I would say the best business advice that I received is just keep trying. It's going to be uncomfortable. There's numbers, especially when you're first starting off, you have no idea how to start a
Mhm.
business. You see all these people that are successful, but just keep
Mhm.
trying. And, I'd fail so many times building a team, building this company,
Mhm.
trial and error. Just the biggest advice I got was just keep pushing forward. No matter what I fail, just look at it as sort of, a stepping stone towards my next success.
All right. Um, you lose everything. The only thing you have is your computer, cell phone, and an internet connection. How do you rebuild your business in 30 days?
I would just start basically how I started the first time. I would go on Upwork. I would apply to as many jobs as I could every single day, just try to get as many gigs as I could. When I first started, I would take gigs that paid me $5 for a blog post, $20 for a blog post. Just started small, got some feedback on my profile, and I was able to, charge a little bit higher, get some higher end jobs from there. But that's exactly what I would do, is just build another company up from the ground up, similar to how I built the company I run now.
All right. And finally, what's the biggest challenge in your business today?
I would say the biggest challenge in my business today, probably competition. There's a lot more people that want to get booked on
Mhm.
podcasts. Back in 2017, when I started, when we would pitch shows, the conversion rate was probably like 80%. Not
Wow.
that many people are trying to get on shows. Now it's, now a really good conversion rate is like 30%. I'm happy if we get 20% on the pitches that we send out. And this is with customizing them and doing tons of
Mhm.
research. And, it's so many people want to get on podcasts now, especially with the pandemic where speaking engagements have been canceled. People aren't doing live events. They're
Mhm.
turning to podcasts to do more of those speaking engagements now online. So that's probably the biggest thing, is more of the competition being out there, and more people want to get booked on podcasts, but not enough podcasts coming out for them to get on.
Right, right. All right. So we're here with Trevor Oldham with Podcasting You. If we're looking to get booked on and podcast and asking for your, where do you want us to go?
So I would say just go to podcastingyou.com if you want
Mm.
that free ebook. As I mentioned, 10 ways to wow any podcast audience. It's podcastingyou.com/book. And don't be surprised if you get put into an email funnel from there.
All right. Thank you, Trevor, again for your time. Hope you're staying safe out there. And hopefully we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it.
All right. My pleasure.